Okay. Yeah, my granddaughter's calling to come home from my mom's house, and Ross was supposed to pick her up, but he fell asleep on the couch, so she's bringing her back. Anyway, I had to unlock the door to make sure she could get in while I was doing this. I invited William also, and I'm hoping that he'll come in. And I was going to post the link, to get into the stream after we had a few minutes to talk. So I was kind of hoping that he would join us because I wanted to kind of go over the stuff with the USV Grace, and I wanted to talk about the chalking incident there in Texas and what happened, and whether or not the arrests are legal, or whether or not, they may not be legal, or just exactly, what's going on with that, or what we think. So anyway, I don't know if you have
Yeah.
anything that you want to start out by saying about that yourself, Archer, while we wait for William to see if he's going to come.
Well, I think that yeah, William was definitely the guy to talk to when it comes to the legality of it all. I think the only thing that I would have to say about it is just the behavior of it all. It's an interesting thing when you have a group of people who talk about wanting to make change, and helping people live better lives by protecting their rights, but yet they're the first ones to trample on rights. It seems like I think that they maybe need to look at their behavior more and be more introspective about what they do and why they're doing what they're doing than just this idea of a free for all because I have the First Amendment. And I think I heard maybe William say this, but the First Amendment is supposed to be used as a shield. It's supposed to be protecting you from these governmental overreaches. But it here turns out that a lot of these guys are using it more as a sword to cut other people with what they believe is their right to do. And I think that if they continue down this road, you're going to see less and less support for them. I mean, you're already seeing it right now because a lot of people are getting tired of the nonsense, the drama. They're getting tired of being lied to. And so you're seeing these people not gain any support, but rather lose the support that they actually already have.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I guess, I kind of saw that with, even with people supporting, them getting themselves there to that particular protest. And, I don't know that the people in that community are very, very supportive of what's going on there. And, I mean, they're the ones that are going to be most likely to change things there in the community. And they are the support that you would probably need, to change things there. And so I think that, getting them on my side would be my first priority.
No, and I agree. And I saw Michelle ask about how they trampling others' rights. The first one that comes to mind is furry. She's using her First Amendment rights to really disrupt others' rights to assemble and to use that assembly for religious purposes. She's not going out there to spread a word of, hey, listen, this is what I'm trying to tell you guys about my rights as a First Amendment auditor. She's going out there to disrupt these services because God knows why. Honestly, I don't know why she's doing that. I think it seems more apparent that she's trying to get um, clicks and views with that, and that's in my opinion not the right way to do these things.
Well, what we know now is with the chalking in Texas is that, chalking there is considered criminal mischief, and it's written into the statute with regards to I guess the actions and not the words that were used. So I actually I have a I brought up a copy of the statute. I'm going to try to share the screen and show you if I can find it. So, the wording is that intentionally or knowingly makes markings, including inscriptions. Any slogans. It doesn't say, only bad slogans about cops. It says that, it's all of them, all of the drawings or the paintings on the tangible property of another. And so, I mean, they have it written into their statute. So I don't, I know that it's not content based. It's not content restrictions, and so there may be an issue with that.
that would have been an interesting social experiment to do if they had a different group of people that would come up there afterwards and chalk something positive about the courts or about the police and see what happens. And I mean, it would suck to have to get somebody else arrested, but it would be an interesting, maybe not that same day, but further down the road to see what would happen if someone went up there to chalk that. Someone had said that, and I think that's an interesting idea. Um, but I guess we'll never know because I don't necessarily think that anyone's going to do that.
Right, and that's, I guess, the problem, in that, those those actions that they take aren't really planned out, and they're not strategized, and they just seem to be willy-nilly, fly by the seat of your pants. I've got a box of chalk, and let's just go start writing on stuff, you know?
Yeah, and I think a lot of times too that we see things on YouTube, and we don't ask context. We don't look at, well, what happened before or after. What brought us to the point we're at. And one of the things that I noticed, there's this video that's been going around about this woman who is in jail, who is obviously going through some sort of psychotic episode, and she's strapped down to the bed, and a lot of people are really going after that. And it's hard to understand, well, what is going on. I mean, how long was she strapped down to the bed prior to her being brought up to go to the bathroom, and then she was strapped down again. It looks very, very bad, but I don't think anybody cares to ask about context about what was going on there, and just attacking because, well, police officers are bad, jailers are bad. We know that they try to hurt people on purpose, but it goes into this larger scheme of the First Amendment auditors where a lot of things are taken out, in my opinion, of context and just being put out there for almost like an entertainment value.
Well, that's definitely my problem with it is, the lack of, I guess, any strategy to the whole thing. And, I mean, the whole idea that this guy got arrested there for holding a sign that said "shit is fucked up" and stuff, I could get behind supporting him and supporting that, but I can't get behind there being no strategy to all of these other actions that he's taken and that have been taken with regards to this in the meantime, because I don't think that it has solved anything, and I don't think it gets anybody any closer, to what their goal is.
No, I don't, and I think it's this misinformation that you're hearing. And this is one of the things that you saw with the auditors too. One of the questions I had was, well, what if kids chalking for hopscotch? You're going to arrest them? Well, that's ludicrous because we're talking about time, place, and manner. If you have a child who is on the sidewalk outside the house who chalks for hopscotch, that's not the same as going on to the atrium of the courthouse and chalking. We're talking about two different forums here, and people want to put this out there like the police are going to go ahead and arrest your kids if they find them chalking on the sidewalk. Well, that's not the law at all. That's not what the law says at all. It talks about specific places, not the public forum of your sidewalk outside of your house.
Welcome to the panel, Desert. How are you?
It's a little choppy on my end, but the phone seems to be working. I am out and about. I just met with Pugface Media. We had lunch together. It was rather a fun conversation.
Would you like to share any of that with us, or is that something you can share?
Other than we just had a first meeting and we're discussing the community and our thoughts on it, and nothing really revealing. I know a lot of people have questioned him being an attorney, and I can safely say he is an attorney.
I never really got the impression that he wasn't personally. I guess a lot of people had questions about that. I don't know. He never did seem to run around trying to practice any kind of law for anybody in the community, so to speak. So I didn't really feel too worried about it. But I like the guy. I like him. I like all those dogs he has.
Now, I would say, in my opinion, he's a pretty well spoken guy, and we discussed things on a personal level, not to go too far into it, other than he kind of knows who I am now, and I kind of know who he is now, and we're probably going to take this up again sometime. Maybe go out and do some cop watching together now that we kind of know the areas where we can meet up, and I have no objections to go out with him and maybe do a couple cop watches here and there some night. But it'd be kind of fun to go back out.
Now, Pugface was there and was detained at the hospital the night after, I guess. I don't know. There was some other protest or something there at the hospital after after the dumping incident. Pugface was one of the people that was there, wasn't he?
Yes, he was, and he was detained with another individual whose name escapes me. He never erupted as any sort of YouTube personality within the First Amendment genre that I know of. We talked a little bit about that, and there's a little bit more that happened there that really wasn't revealed as far as any sort of video coverage. But yeah, he was held for a little while and then released because he didn't trespass on the property.
Desert, we're talking about the chalking incident in Texas, and I wonder if you have any thoughts on that.
Well, I mean, and we talked about that a little bit as well today in our talks. And one of the things, at least from my perspective, was that when it came right down to the protesting, and they were there on the property and they were protesting, and I kind of confirmed my thoughts with others who are a little bit smarter than me on this, that US v. Grace could have applied, and that their protests could have been pushed to the traditional public forum, that they still really had no absolute right to protest on the property. They seemed to tolerate it. Their content was tolerated. Their conduct was tolerated, all the way up to the point to where the chalking came about, and because of the state statute, and that it ended up being a conduct issue and not a content.
William, welcome to the stream. I'm so glad to have you. I think we're all glad to have you here because I would really love to hear you tell us some more about content-based restrictions and conduct. I mean, the difference between content and conduct-based restriction, how the US v. Grace may apply to this issue here in Texas.
Could I see something just real quick before William starts? Because I know he's way smarter than me, but I'm still seeing this idea about children. If children are up there chalking away at the courthouse, why would they be arrested? And I think the statute clearly talks about knowingly. Does the child knowingly understand that what they're doing could be an issue? And I think William has talked about that as well. So I don't think the argument of children is a good argument that people are using. I think it's a poor argument, and it just doesn't go anywhere.
Now, one of the arguments that I even brought up with Pugface was we brought up the argument of, was it the content? And I told him, well, if they wanted to find out if they were going to base that restriction on content, they should have started out immediately drawing flowers and trees and birds and rainbows and stuff like that instead of the slogans. And if they were allowed to draw flowers and birdies on the sidewalk in the chalk, and nobody arrested them for it, and then all of a sudden they put some FTP content out there, and that's when they came out. And but they started right out with what they normally do. So there's no way to find out at this point in time whether or not they're going, of that argument.
I'm sad because I know that William's having some issues with his connection and trying to get on and use the mic on this application. So I'm sorry, Archer.
I'm sorry. I was going to say make sure you have Discord disconnected. Otherwise, it won't let you get on.
Uh-oh, I'm getting a phone call now. Hello? Yeah.
That was weird.
Yeah, that's neat. I didn't know that it would do that, so I guess we'll all be very careful when you're on stream whatever this is, StreamYards, whenever you take a phone call, just in case.
Hopefully, it's not a bad conversation, at least, anyways. But yeah, hopefully William will get back on here. He's got some really good insight, at least what I've heard him talk about with this shocking idea. I don't know if I would consider anything that they did during this couple days as a success. It seems like they got 4 people arrested, and that was about it. I didn't see anything that was successful. That's just my opinion.
Well, that's what's unfortunate about it is, that I don't know that they really made any difference in anything that's going to happen there other than for them to tighten things up where, in Rockwall. And I mean, I don't know. I don't know if you can blame them. I'm pretty sure that the community there is pretty frustrated with it, and they're the ones that I guess are the voters there. So they're the ones that are going to have the influence over the people that make the decisions.
Yeah, I think, again, it has to go back to if this community wants to grow in numbers as far as supporters, and I'm not talking about the supporters they have right now. It seems like, to me, a lot of the supporters seem to be more anti-cop than pro First Amendment. But if they wanted to continue to grow, I would think that they would maybe go a different direction. Maybe clean their act up a little bit.
Desert, do you think that anything was accomplished in Texas, or have I already asked you that question?
You know what? Let me back out because for some reason when I took that call, it killed my headset, and it's really hard to hear you through the speaker on this phone. If you can hear me.
I can hear you, yes.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah, things kind of got interrupted. So I'm going to back out and I'll hit that link and I'll come right back and I'm going to reset.
I did put the link in the description. I'm sorry, into the chat. So if anybody wants to join us here, you're welcome to join us because I'd love to hear other people's thoughts on this. And I'd like to hear more from William specifically about US v. Grace and what exactly it says. And I think that probably, if you're an auditor or you're an activist or you do any type of protesting, you need to know what that case law says. Because, you need to know where your traditional public forums are. You need to know where you have, the most rights to speak freely. And, you need to stay within the law because I've said this before, the government is a hard enemy to crack. And so they have lots of tools that you've got to use every little tool that you have and be on the right side.
What's up, Nasty Nathaniel?
Hey, howdy. How's everyone doing?
Excellent. How are you doing, sir?
I'm peachy.
Going topless, I see.
Yeah, I'm a little naked right now, but that's okay. I just, Teresa, I noticed you were live, and I don't think I've ever seen you go live before, so I got pretty excited.
Panel streams are hot.
Panel streams are wicked hot.
All right.
Hi, Sasquatch.
Hi, Archer. Nasty?
Howdy. How you doing, sir?
Oh, much more fun. We'd probably get arrested.
Yeah, if we had some chalk, we might. Hey,
Yeah.
it's Desert Sentinel, the legend.
Hey, it's Nasty. How you doing?
How you doing, sir? I'm good to see you all in here.
I'm doing pretty good. Hey, I don't know if you caught the word that Pug and I had lunch.
Oh, you and Pugface met up. Pugface met up. I didn't know that.
Yeah, we met up today.
Oh, that's awesome. That's really cool. I'm glad you got to meet him. Now you and me need to meet up. We'll have to meet up in Hollywood, or we can meet up anywhere. It doesn't matter. Shit, we can meet up on the moon.
Yeah. We'll call Elon Musk. I'll book a flight.
Yeah, and I'll pass the word on to David Miscavige.
Nasty, do you have any thoughts to add on the chalking stuff in Texas and the criminal mischief charges?
You know, I don't know. I mean, you know, the thing of it is like, it makes me think of when I first got involved in this movement back in, 2015, was when I started hanging out with Brian Sumner, who's a dear friend of mine. We're still friends. I was at his wedding, and he's not really active anymore, but he used to be a big cop blocker. You know, he used to write for copblock.org, just like I wrote for copblock.org. And that's how I got, involved in this. So I used to go out to Fresno and hang out with him and the crew from Cop Block Fresno. And then shortly after that, he went back east to meet up with Adamo Freeman, who I'm sure most of you probably know who Adamo is. He's another one. He's not really active anymore, but he was really big in the whole Cop Block scene. And they went on that thing called the Mac Tour. Do you guys remember the Mac Tour that they did in 2000? Or no, wait a minute. I think it was like early 2016.
I do.
Okay. Well, one of the big things that they did during the Mac Tour, and this is why I'm bringing this up, is that they would go around and like chalk police stations. And that was, and to me, it was like I haven't played with chalk since I was a kid, but and they actually ended up getting charged in, I believe Noblesville, Indiana. That's where they were. They were in a town called Noblesville, Indiana, which is near Indianapolis. And they got detained after chalking the police station, and they were let go, but then later they were charged. I guess the district attorney in that, whatever county, that Marion County or whatever it is, charged him with criminal mischief. And so they continued on with the Mac Tour, and finally what they decided to do was to go back to Indiana and turn themselves in as, I don't know if this is the right way to put it. To me, they kind of seemed to like they were kind of like martyrs for their cause, I mean, I even heard a story that somebody tried to bail Adamo out of jail and he refused to be released. Like he refused to be bailed out. I mean, I don't know if all that's true, but it really didn't amount to nothing. I mean, I think the end result was they paid a fine, and that was it, but I think for somebody like Earl or David or News Now Houston or whatever you want to call him, I think it's kind of risky for him, being his current situation, his legal case and everything like that, to be involved in something like that. From what I've heard, I guess he wasn't actually the one doing the chalking, but I guess, he was, from what I heard, he was the one there kind of like organizing it. Am I right? Or am I inaccurate?
Well, I've heard a certain level of discussion about what is or isn't involvement with him. However, I'm only going to say that there are many people within the community that have certain situations that maybe they shouldn't be so closely involved with a situation like this. I mean, even like with Andrew Brame, not now, maybe later, his situation, if he happened to have been picked up for this minor, this misdemeanor, that could have carried over farther into his situation back home in Oklahoma.
Well, yeah, and I guess that's the point that I'm trying to make, and I'm not going to go into. I mean, we all know what the legal situation is, but basically, what I'm going to say is, if I was in his shoes, being out on bond, fighting a felony case, I think it's kind of risky to get involved in something like that. I mean, whether he was actually the one doing the chalking or just kind of organizing it, he was there. He was obviously a part of it. But as far as like the whole thing in itself, I mean, I don't know. I guess it's not something I would do. I don't really see what the point of it is. But at the same time, people might say, well, what's the point of you auditing Chick-fil-A? And it's like, what's the point of that? So I guess, who am I to judge? Who am I to say I mean, I think there's probably other ways that they could have protested that wouldn't have gotten them arrested. I mean, they could have picketed, they could have held up signs. But then again, it all goes back to, who am I to say how someone should protest? Just like, who am I to say how someone should audit or what they audit? I mean, if that makes any sense.
That's true.
Right before you joined the panel, Nate, we were discussing the fact that they were picketing and protesting and had their slogans and everything else on the property. And under US v. Grace, the court probably could have pushed them back to the traditional public forum in the sidewalk, but they were allowing that protest to occur. And then they, even after the chalking incident, allowed it to continue. It was the conduct that occurred with the marking of the property under that statute that got 4 people arrested.
So it was the behavior, it was the way certain people were behaving and what they were doing that kind of led to all that?
No, it was just the fact that they marked the property without permission. It was the conduct. It wasn't the content.
No, yeah, that's what I meant. Yeah, I mean, it was what actually took place. Yeah, and what people were doing.
But as far as wearing T-shirts and carrying signs, as inflammatory as some of the language was on those signs, it wasn't a permanent marking of, as far as graffiti. It wasn't a malicious mischief as far as the marking of the property. It didn't meet any steps that it was. It was. And I guess, and as I always say, at some point in time, you kind of miss the message of what they were protesting. I know they were there for auto. I don't know what case they were there for auto. I kind of understood that maybe it was because he got arrested for carrying a sign somewhere in the town and was arrested. I saw the video later. I know Otto has other issues at that courthouse in Collin County. To me, some of what they're trying to show is muddied through just what they're doing isn't making a clear statement of why they are there, other than they don't like the police.
Yeah, and I think it sounds to me like it's pretty petty, like it's a petty charge, but at the same time, this is what I'm going to fall back on, and it's funny that I'm going to say this because I'm an auditor, but here's the thing. I think when you start seeing people in this community, First Amendment auditor community, which I'm a part of, getting arrested for petty chicken shit charges, right? I think what it is, and I've talked to other people in this community that agree with me, is that the law enforcement community and the courts are getting sick and tired of us. They're getting tired of First Amendment auditors. They're getting tired of all this. And so they're just, finding whatever legal loopholes they can to hem people up. And when it comes to, when it comes to the law, I mean, I think they can get real creative, and if they want to find something to if they want to pin something on you, they can find something to do that. And that's what I think it is. I think it's just a situation. I mean, yeah, it's petty. I mean, it's chalk. It's not like it's graffiti. It's not like it's spray paint or something. But I think they're just saying like, okay, well, what can we get them on? Hey, we have criminal mischief. Okay, yeah, we're going to arrest everybody. That's what I think.
Well, in that, Nathaniel, I had a good conversation with Pike Speak tonight about partnering. Instead of going to the police station and trying to put this wedge between, you know, the auditors and the police, why isn't there some sort of partnership? And he was telling me about High Desert Community Watch had some deal with the police where he actually went out and had a talk with a group of police officers to talk about auditing First Amendment rights and things like that. I think that goes a lot farther than going in and just cussing out a bunch of cops or going in and videotaping their lobby. I mean, honestly, what change comes from that, and what change do you expect to come from that if you're not going to partner with these people that you're trying to help change? You know, it doesn't work if you have this adversarial relationship with somebody. You're just going to deepen their beliefs that you're just a bad person every time you go out and cuss at them, right? I mean, they're going to just say, well, we must be right because you're being an asshole, and really double down on their behavior. And that's not what I don't think anybody wants. So why go that route when you can see that it's failing all the time?
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I mean, I don't know if High Desert did that. I haven't been in touch with him for quite some time, but that idea, no, I agree. I think it's a great idea. I'll tell you something I did before. I mean, I live in Los Angeles now, but before I moved to Los Angeles, I lived in the Central Coast, which is like, you know, in Santa Maria, California, which is like 3 hours north of here. And that's a much smaller area. The towns, it's like, you know, little small beach cities and so forth. And one of the things that I did, you know, when I started getting really active and, you know, my channel started to grow and I was starting to get more known, whatever you want to put it, is I actually emailed some of the police, because like I said, these are small little police departments. I emailed the sheriff of SLO County. I emailed the city police chiefs of these little towns, and, you know, asked to meet with them and have a discussion, you know, and the only one that ever responded to me was the San Luis Obispo chief of police. You know, her name is Deanna Cantrell. She's still there, actually. And she, you know, she was the only one that responded and said, you know, yeah, you know, I heard you were recently here. You know, I would have liked to have met you and maybe had a cup of coffee and talk and you know, the next time you're in the area, you know, let me know, you know. And so I think the reason I brought that up is I think I'm agreeing. I think stuff like that is positive, you know, when you can actually interact, you know, like depending on what, like obviously like living in LA, it'd probably be a lot harder to set up a meeting with the Los Angeles police chief of police than it would the SLO chief of police or the Pismo Beach chief of the police, you know. So but I think things like that are positive. So yeah, I agree.
Sasquatch, I'm sorry, I hate to interrupt you guys, but I wanted to give Sasquatch a chance to speak and see if he had any thoughts about the chalking in Texas.
Hey,
Yeah.
before Sasquatch starts talking, can I just say something real quick? Can I ask you something real quick, Teresa?
I guess.
Dinner and a movie?
Of course. Anytime.
Okay. Sasquatch, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Please continue.
Oh, well, it's my turn? Oh,
Yes, sir.
awesome. No, what I saw about that chalking incident was like a gang mentality. And I mean, yeah, they were kind of nice to the people that were walking in there, but those are the people that we were trying to get on our side, you know, as First Amendment community. And all those people were pissed off from what I saw. I mean,
I'm
it
sorry,
didn't look-
Sasquatch. Which people are you talking about? I guess the police or the protesters or the community?
The civilian, the community there. I mean, all the protesters were doing was pissing the locals off. That's all I saw. You know, and the same thing when they went over to where Otto got arrested for holding a sign, which that should have never happened. I mean, that's a clear violation of his rights. I mean, but yeah, I mean, they were pissing people off there too. I mean,
All right, you guys, I'm going to bring in Pablo Damon. I haven't ever met him before, so this will be the first time. And then Bob's out there too.
I'll bow out.
I will go ahead and bow out too. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. Thanks for letting me come in.
Thank you guys both for joining me.
All right.
He said, all right.
Hello, Pablo.
What's going
I
on?
don't know if we've ever met before. How are you?
No, we probably have not.
And also welcome, Bob.
Good afternoon
Radio
or
voice.
evening, wherever it is where you live. Hi, Teresa.
Hey, Bob.
Archer.
Bob, would you like
Hello,
to tell us
Bob.
your feelings about the Texas incident and what you think about what happened in Texas?
I think it's silly that they were out there chalking. I think that it's a step too far.
Do you think that they would have been arrested if they had been holding signs, maybe?
I think signs would have been a different thing, but also weren't they on internal walks? And if they're demonstrating on internal walks, if there's an ordinance or some law against it, then they shouldn't have been there. Grace covers the perimeter, and Adderley covers internal walks. So what's the standard here, and what law did they violate? I guess that's my question first.
Right, and so they were charged with criminal mischief.
And that may stick. And would they be charged if it was just signs? What's mischievous about that?
Right, what would the charge have been? That's true. I don't know.
So, I mean, if they hadn't chalked, I guess I wouldn't have an objection unless there's a law against some other activity, unless they were breaking some other law.
Well,
What about you, Pablo? What
after
do you think about what happened in Texas? I'm sorry. Go ahead, Desert. We'll get to Pablo in just 1 second.
yeah, as Bob came in, and as I pointed out, they were allowed to protest with signs and their T-shirts and everything else prior to the chalking. The chalking incident occurred, and they were arrested, and then they were allowed to continue protesting with their T-shirts and signs without any molestation. So it was just the conduct that had to do with the criminal mischief that got 4 people arrested.
All right, I want to hear from Pablo.
I'll tell you what I think. I watched it, and I've been watching the auditors for a long time, since the first one of them came up. And most of them know that interacting with the system, their first time that they're going to interact with the system is usually with a police officer. And after some years, they may figure out that what they're interacting with is the system, and the police officer is just a tool. And once they take a couple of things to court, have their children taken from them, get beat up here and there, maybe go through the military, see their buddies die, they understand, some people will eventually understand, that it's not the police you're after. It's that guy, it's the Esquire. He's the guy. The Esquire. He's the guy who controls all of it. And what do? We pay his salary. We do the banking, we do the whatever. I like how the auditors, I mean, Johnny 5-0 to all of them, these guys that walk up and say, hey, screw you, you can't do that to me. And the people behind those police officers are the judges and the lawyers. And those are the ones we need to be after. We need cameras in the courtroom. This shit on the street is is great, and but it ain't nothing like writing a appellate brief or something like that. And the sites need to be changed from these, you know, these people in the post offices and the lower level employees. You need to look at who's really behind the whole thing, and it's definitely behind the bar in the courtroom, and those people that are protected by the police officers. That's what I think.
So who's ultimately behind the people that you're speaking of?
Say that again?
Who ultimately is behind the people you are speaking of?
Well, here's how it works. There's a handful of families that run the planet. They have all the money. They give it to the guys with the guns. The guys with the guns pointed at the guys with the pens. The guys with the pens are the lawyers. And they write down the law that we must follow. And they hire some police officers to, if we get out of line, and they bust us in the head. I mean, it couldn't be any simpler than that. Any more questions?
Okay, I'm just asking.
It's pretty simple. You know, I'm nearing the end of my deal. This stuff here, it's white for a reason. I had a top secret security clearance when I was 16 years old, and that was way back in the 70s. I lived in all kinds of places and saw all kinds of stuff, and I've seen the monsters. The monsters have suits and ties on. Those cops, they're just dummies. Those are people that have either can't get a job or have been to Afghanistan and Iraq and back and don't know any other thing than to bust people in the head. You know, the problem is in the judge's chambers. And that's why you can't take a camera into the courtroom.
Can I ask you a question about your top secret clearance at 16? What did you need a top secret clearance at 16 for?
Oh, I was smart enough to have Romney's dad, who was the governor of Michigan, I was smart enough to have Romney's dad. He granted me the release to take my GED on my 17th birthday, and my test scores were good enough to go in the Navy because I just damn wanted to get out of Detroit. And I went submarine school, and they sent the FBI to my high school to talk to my friends because they were going to give me a job to be a missile technician in the Navy. So I had the clearance, and I ended up working for the right people in the right place. And next thing you know, by 19, I knew who the monsters on the planet were. I applaud the auditors. They found out much later. Fuck, I was Edward Snowden in 1979. They beat the shit out of me for trying to take pictures of the shit that I took pictures of. They're way ahead of us. The problem's in the courtroom. That's where the rubber meets the road. It's in the courtroom.
So you joined the Navy at 16?
Huh?
You joined the Navy at 16?
Yeah, I went in on right after my 17th birthday.
So you
I
went to
believe
the
my
Navy.
P14's online. You can find it.
No, I don't care to. It's not that big of a deal. But I was just curious at what age you actually went into the Navy. So you were 17 when you went to the Navy?
I went to the Orlando for boot camp in December 1976, and I was born in August of 59. You can do the math. I was 17. I joined up when I was 16. But that's when I found. I ended up finding out, and I got video. I had the first handy cam. I had one cop knock it out of my hand. You know, I started to get really loud. I wrote the first programming manual for cell telephones. They took my child. She's 31 now. They took her from me when I was 8 because I was loud. I was living in Austin. I know, I get it. I applaud the auditors, but they're not hooked up, and they don't see what the target is. There are lawyers behind these cops.
So I think it's probably a good idea that people do understand how politics works and the political, more of the political side of things as opposed to just, fighting with police officers and the lady at the, the clerk of court's office.
Look at the 13th Amendment. Does anybody know anything about the 13th Amendment? Go ahead and Google it. And the War of 1812. The 13th Amendment wasn't the abolishment of slavery. That was the one they stuck in after they burnt down the White House. The 13th Amendment was all about ending esquire. If you took a title of nobility, it was illegal. And these are the guys that they're just killing us. Qualified immunity was written by whom? A lawyer. Who are the fattest cats on the planet? The lawyers. Ask them to represent you. Represent what you want to say. All these guys that have won all these lawsuits for having all these officers hurt them, that's because they signed an agreement. Without an agreement, if they would have taken it and truly got in front of a jury of their peers, we wouldn't have the mess that we have. And the lawyers, they're like ants. They're everywhere.
Lawyers are everywhere. You got to have them, though. So it's hard to fight a case in court without a lawyer. Especially when you don't have a clue about how the law works.
I'll tell you.
You go out into like a non-traditional public forum and start chalking it up without researching the laws there.
I'm on the internet for one of the first times. You find me and you ask me a question, I will give you the truth. And guess what? You ain't paying me for nothing. I walked away from the full pension 40 years ago.
Desert, did you want to talk a little bit about what's going on with swine?
You know what? I've in between meeting with Pugface, and I was sitting down going over the court dates. Going to do a little wrap up of what occurred last week, what is going to occur this week. And the only comment I was going to be able to make about Kyle Stone is I don't know. I haven't gone over all the data that I have. I believe he has court this week. He may have several court dates this week. I didn't realize how many pending issues he currently has.
Bob, did you have anything that you'd like to add? Bob?
I got to figure out how to unmute my microphone. Go ahead, Desert.
It got dark here, and there's the camera. There's my list that I will be putting out a report here shortly.
Awesome. Look forward to those reports. Bob?
I got a request for some sound bites, but I thought better. So what was your question, Teresa?
Well, no, I just wanted to know if you had anything that you wanted to add, because I was going to kind of wrap this stream up. If anybody had any questions or anything in the comments section, maybe we could go over that real quick. But I wanted to see if you had anything to add, and then I was going to ask Archer.
No, I have nothing further, but it's great that you have a panel up here. It's hot, so keep it up.
Thanks, Bob. Archer? Oh, no, Archer.
Hey, I saw one comment pop up, and I know certain people have their ideals that I'm not going to change their mind. And we were discussing the chalking, and this person basically said, and we were discussing having more of a dialogue with law enforcement, and this person said something about, well, if they weren't murdering and kidnapping and doing, these things that maybe we could have more of a dialogue. But one of the things that recently happened out here in California, and I don't know where this person is, and this was close to me because it was a suspect that was suspected of murder in Apple Valley in the high desert where I live. And he was a fugitive, and it was in the local news that they were looking for this individual. There had been some armed crimes that this person had allegedly committed. A bounty hunter tracked them to Moreno Valley and went to the motel where this person was at. Bounty hunters do not have to have a warrant to enter, so they were attempting to make entry into the motel when the suspect shot and killed the bounty hunter by shooting through the door. This person was tracked down here, not too far from where I'm at right now, to a motel in San Bernardino, where San Bernardino County Sheriff's caught up with him, and as he attempted to flee, he was shot and killed. So I don't know what people want to say about it when they lump, as they put it, when police murder somebody. This person was evidently an extremely violent individual. Also found out he was a Prop 37 release in the state of California and had 13 prior felony convictions. So what is law enforcement supposed to do when you have an individual like this out on the street?
Pablo, we're just fixing to wrap things up. I wanted to see if you had anything to add.
Well, what do you... His story, history. When the law enforcement and the judges and the lawyers find someone guilty of a felony, right? What happens? The guy's toast for life. You can look me up. I never committed a crime in my life, but I saw somebody who was doing wrong and I pointed it out. And next thing you know, I was accused of a ton of crimes. It's about power. It is about power, and it is about a pyramid. And these police that you're after, and these civil servants that you're after, they're not it. Where the rubber meets the road in the courtroom, and above the courtroom, you'll find the military. Because these, it's not this. It's not what you think it is. Take a camera into a courtroom. Try and take a camera into a courtroom. I've done it. I've got some video from courtrooms. They didn't even know I had one. Right? What they do in there is it's just the awful thing. It's theft. It's absolute theft. These police are just there to round up the slaves that realized they were slaves. That's all it is. The police are just there. They're no better. The police are just as slaved as we are. They're the suckasses that go up to the house and go, "Yes, massa, who do you want me to go get?" "Well, Billy and his brother took off. You go hunt them down and you bring them back." Well, that's how we got taught. But in the common world right now, it's a lot different. Don't pay your taxes, don't do this, don't do that, don't do this, don't do that. The next thing you know, you're in jail. And the people that are in charge are the judges and the lawyers and their masters. The police are just fodder. They're cannon fodder. They're nothing. They're nothing. A whole bunch of them are making a shitload of money, but your targets with your cameras need to be in the courtroom. I've been saying that for years. You can see me on the comment section. You'll look back in 30 years from now and go, "Fuck, that guy knew what he was talking about," because we'll have the software to recreate everyone's lives through the chat room. It's over. These guys have won. But we got to stop giving them what they want. And that's their taxes, and that's their credit cards, and that's their banking. And it's in the courtroom is where you're getting harmed, and you don't even know. And the police, they're just dogs. They're just bulldogs that are trained to bite. And trying to retrain a biting bulldog is not where you're at. It happens in the courtroom, and that's where you're getting harmed. But I do like the auditors because they're badass. They know something's wrong. They walk up and they go, "Fuck you! You ain't saying that shit to me." And a lot of times it works, and then a lot of times it doesn't. But I do like it.
Well, I appreciate your insight. Hang on, go ahead, Echo.
Find me, call me.
I'm
I'll
going
be
to
there
wrap
for
things
you.
up. I'm going to wrap things up with everybody now because I wanted to give an update specifically on some news with Earl, because I noticed that Earl had mentioned me in one of his videos the other day. So I want to make sure that you guys had all of the up-to-date information on Earl's case and how I am not under any sort of investigation. Let's see. I guess you can see this. This is this motion for the hearing, the in-camera inspection of these protected records, and these protected records are specifically CPS records that the state does not want News Now Houston sharing with his audience because they have to do with young children. And I think he's been pretty clear about how he wants to share all the information. Some of this information is medical information that is, just simply not something that the whole world gets to look at, no matter how much he wants. I wanted to share a couple of other things with you guys, and I have all of these documents. These are all of the filings from his case. So that was the motion. This is a redacted motion, and this is the motion. Well, this is the in-camera inspection. But these motions are all redacted. So, but they did grant the motion for the in-camera inspection. I'm not exactly sure how the sharing works, so I'm going to make sure that I'm sharing every screen with you. This is the motion to continue by, this is the state's motion for the protective order. And this is actually the motion for the protective order that will protect these orders that pertain to medical treatment. Doesn't have anything to do with the Fusion Center. Nothing. Nothing in here at all about the Fusion Center. You can certainly look at all these records. They're posted on Discord. I wanted to make sure that everyone knew that I'm not under any kind of investigation for anything, not under an indictment for molesting my children. That's Earl. And nobody's looking at me for harassment. That would be Earl. So I wanted to make sure that everybody had that update since I was mentioned in another video, and make sure that everybody had access to those records. I'm going to make sure that I post a link to a Dropbox so that you can look at them online on my YouTube community page, and I'll make sure that we have a Dropbox file on Discord so that you can see them there. Anyway, thanks everybody for watching. I really appreciate everybody tuning in. I'm really surprised so many people did, but I'm always happy to have everybody here. And I'm going to try to do more of these panel streams because I really enjoy talking to people about what's going on in video activism, and holding our government accountable. So I think that's very important that we do it. But I think it's important that we do it in a constructive way. That's not going to get us all hemmed up. So anyway, thanks for watching, everybody. You'll have a nice evening.